Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to True Sound Studios. I'm Weezna. So I got to tell you guys this story because if some of you guys have seen the previous video, I talked about how we bought a home in Florida and going to slowly start like transitioning, our New York life down to Florida. But the timing of all this was it was pretty bad because Hurricane Ian came only technically like one day after I got down there. And yes, I unfortunately had to stay down there during the hurricane, and this is the story. Okay, so me and my wife had scheduled this vacation like 6 months ago. We were going on vacation September 19th, that entire week, and we were going to come back on late Sunday night, and then on Monday morning, which is the 26th of September, I was going to fly out really late that night and get down into Florida so that I could start working on the house. It only had been about a week and a half since we closed on the house when I got down there. So, I had to take care of the pool. Someone needs to cut the lawn. I need to start getting appliances in there and just do a little bit of, work on the house before my wife and the dogs came down. And then we could really start, getting the house to be the way that we wanted to. Just landed before the hurricane. All right, so now I'm in Port Charlotte and it is about 7 o'clock in the morning. Last time I was here, the parking lot was full. So I'm gonna go get some supplies right now so that I can be at least a little bit more prepared. Early the next morning, so now this is one day before Hurricane Ian hit Florida, I, woke up the second the sun came out. I left the hotel, go out and just start shopping and buying everything from, flashlights, water, food, dry food, wet food, mini fridge, a bed sheets, just all that stuff, just minimally, just so I could survive for a few days without electricity. And then I found out that all the stores were closing at noon that day. So I had, maybe 5 hours max to buy all this stuff. I also wanted to buy some tools so I could board up the windows and, just do some basic stuff around the house to prepare for this hurricane. About halfway through the day, we decided that we didn't want to be responsible for the rental car because we had just closed on the house a week and a half ago. We didn't even have an insurance policy written on the house yet because it can take up to 60 days. So we didn't also want to be responsible for a vehicle. So of course, now I regret doing it, but I took the rental car back and dropped it off and then got an Uber back to the Florida home, which is fortunately is only like 12-minute drive. It's really close. And now I'm without a car, but I actually had shipped down my electric skateboard from New York down to Florida, so that could be my vehicle for the week because, of course, we didn't know the hurricane was coming. I mean, we had planned this trip, planned the vacation, and then the following week for me to be down there to start working on the house. Didn't know hurricane was going to come. And as you talk to a lot of people, everyone's like, most likely will pass. Don't worry about it. And even if it does, it shouldn't be bad. So I had this electric skateboard. It does 30 miles an hour. It'll do almost 30 miles on it as well. So everything is so close to the house that it was going to be the perfect situation. I didn't need a car. I was excited about being able to skateboard everywhere. Anyways, I dropped this car off. Now I have no car. And sure enough, my electric skateboard never comes. So now it's late Tuesday night, the night before the storm. I'm boarding up all the windows. I went to Home Depot, couldn't really get any lumber. So I took the interior doors of the house and I started putting them up only on the inside of the house. I know it's not the perfect situation, but I wanted to do something. And based on the way the neighbors told me the wind was going to come, I boarded up those windows and try to fortify myself in a little closet area in the middle of the home. So slept like crap that night because I was so worried about this stupid storm. Next morning, we realized that the storm was going to be really bad. It was going to hit pretty much exactly where I was. And I tried desperately to get out of there, get an Uber to a shelter or something. Because at this point, we realized it was going to be a Cat 3, Cat 4 storm. It ended up being a Category 4. And I just wanted to get out of there. Now I'm super nervous and everyone else is telling me to leave. And I end up couldn't get a ride. Uber wasn't working. Nobody, of course, I understand, like nobody wanted to drive anywhere. There was a shelter right down the road. I tried calling them. Nobody would pick up the phone, so I didn't even know if it was full, if it was going to be worth my time walking out. I mean, it's downpouring by now, so if I did try to make it out, I was going to get soaked, and all my stuff was going to get soaked. And I decided just to, stay in. That's what the local news said. It's too late to try to leave, so I hunkered down and just tried to ride the storm out. So the spot that I hung out in was a closet in the middle of the house, no windows, 2 doors next to me, bathroom right in front of me. So it's kind of like a good situation. I really thought that was going to be good. So I'm on my phone with my wife for quite a while. Power went out maybe somewhere around 3 o'clock or so. And then just, tried to save all the food in the fridge, by eating it or just not opening the door. By probably 1, 2 o'clock, like that's when the 150 mile an hour gusts came through, and it was absolutely insane. So of course, everybody in the family is terrified. Nobody's ever been through a hurricane before. And I'm there by myself. My wife's in New York with the 2 dogs. I don't really know anybody. So riding the storm out, and all of a sudden I start hearing windows break. Piece of shingle comes right through the window, right through the wood, knocks the wood down. Now I have 150 mile an hour winds and water and debris coming in the house. And that was like the first time I really realized this is gonna be bad. Now I really start to worry, and you can just watch the wind it's just going horizontally. It's like the whole world has turned 90 degrees. It's just insane. I'm trying to film some of this just so, some of my family can try to understand what I went through, being sensitive of the fact that to stay away from windows and making sure wherever I was filming, if the glass did break, it would go away from me and not towards me. So I honestly thought things were actually going pretty good until I got off the phone with my wife and I started to play a little video game on my tablet, and I heard water dripping. So I run into the bathroom that's right next to me, and the water is now forcing its way through the frame of the window. Fortunately, the bathtub was right there, so all the water's going in the bathtub. Not a big deal. So I kind of shuffled that around. I had a piece of wood over it, so I wasn't really too concerned. Shut the door, go back to my video game, and I hear water really coming through. So I look on the other side, the other bedroom that's right next to me, and now the water is coming through the ceiling fan like somebody turned on a hose. And then within maybe 3 minutes, the water was so much up there and it filled up so quickly that the drywall starts dropping, and it's falling on the ground. All the water's going everywhere. It gets way louder. So I panic and I think, well, you can just see the drywall flexing. And I thought, well, the little room I was in was next. So I raced all my stuff out of there. Fortunately, I had everything packed up in to-go bags just in case, I did get rescued. I'm running out of this room trying to bring all my stuff with me. And I go to the next room and I put all the stuff in there, And this is not a great room because the wind's kind of hitting the windows really hard. You can just hear these windows just flexing way too much. And I get all my stuff in there, and I realize that the toilets are now overflowing and that water is coming into that bedroom. So I was like, oh man, well, if I go out of this hallway, this is the big living room, dining room, kitchen area where the first windows blew out. And now this entire area is it's soaked. The water's blowing in, and now I'm just afraid to be in there because the wind's blowing. The glass just keeps knocking down more and more glass. I didn't really want to be in there. So I went to the garage. I thought the garage was like the next place to go. So I go in the garage, get all my stuff in the garage finally. Call my wife. I'm like, oh man, it's bad. Like the back half of the house is just getting destroyed. Ceiling's falling in, the water's overflowing everywhere. So now I'm at least in the garage. So I thought that was a safe place. And then 2 minutes after I get in there, I see the water starting to come underneath the garage door. So I race around to the front of the house and I open up the front door. And to see the street flooded. The water is at this point maybe 6 inches up the house, and that's why all the water's coming into the garage. So I freak out. I run back to the garage, and I'm like trying to decide where to go because everywhere is wet, and including when I ran up to the front of the house, the water is just about ready to start coming into the house. So I took a door and I threw it on top of the garbage cans that were already in the garage. And I threw all my stuff up on the garbage cans with the door on top of it. And I'm sitting up there thinking, all right, well, I guess I can ride out the rest of the storm up here. So that all seemed like a really great idea until the wind, we're talking about 150 mile an hour gusts. I mean, we get like 70 mile an hour wind here on really bad days in New York. And I thought that was bad. You know, I worried about the house then, but these 150 mile an hour gusts were insane. Just, you know, it just would rip apart a room so quickly. So right where I'm sitting in the garage, right above me is the attic access. And it literally starts pulling the attic access door into the attic and then falls back down. I was like, oh my God, it's going to fall on my head. And this is a thick piece of lumber. So I go grab the screw gun and some screws that I had bought earlier, thank God. And I screw in the attic access so it at least doesn't fall on me. And the second I was done with that, I look over in the corner of the garage. I start seeing water drip through the drywall. So I had the 2 garbage cans. I had put the door on top of that, but I had my air mattress and I'd used a ladder and some lumber that I had bought, just like lumber planks. And I made this like little staging area just to get the bed up off the ground as well. I see in that corner, the water starting to come through the ceiling. I was like, oh my God, there's nowhere else to go in this house. Where am I going to go? So I decide that the kitchen pantry is like some 3/4 inch really solid shelves. And there's a top shelf that runs all the way across. It's probably 9 feet long. I was like, I can stack all my stuff up in these shelves and then I can sleep at the very top. And that's what I did. I start bringing all my stuff in there. I'm running back and forth, trying to get the stuff in. And I go put my big suitcase and I stuff it in there and I hear the drywall actually drop. And it knocks the drywall down and it takes my bed into the filth water. Now, this is water all coming from the street. At this point, it's probably 8, 10, 12 inches. I don't really know. But it's it takes all the water from the sewers. It's now backed up, the septic tanks. It's really dirty water. So I left the bed. There's no way to clean that and then try to sleep on it, let alone I thought the water was going to keep rising in the house. I really didn't know. So I climb on top of this pantry, and this is where I stayed for the rest of the night and slept there. Just to give you guys an idea of where I am in my house, this is the kitchen. This is a pantry, and I'm up here because it started flooding. If I open that door up, there is a ton of water. It's flooding. So I'm currently making my pantry bed. The kitchen's right there. This is the top of the pantry because there's so much flooding going on that there's water everywhere, and I don't know how much higher it's going to come. So that's what I'm doing right now. I got myself a little blanket that I'm putting underneath, and then I got a sheet. And just to give you a little idea of how tight this is, the shelf actually doesn't go all the way over. It's about 4 inches shy. So that means I have just enough room to get in there. And this is where I'll be sleeping tonight. Oh, and let me show you this. Here's my fan. Okay, it's a piece of cardboard, and you go like this. Fancy. And to top it off, for lighting, I have a flashlight, but try not to use it. So I have this. Okay, just figured I'd show you guys my new studio sleeping quarters. That is literally where I slept that night. The water level came up about a foot on the outside of the house, and fortunately, because of how the house is built with all concrete, maybe only got maybe 8-10 inches in the garage, and maybe only, I don't know, a half inch, maybe 2 inches at most in the house. I really couldn't tell. It was dark then. I did see, when I looked out of the back of the house, the entire pool was covered in water. It's an in-ground pool, totally covered in water. And you can see from the photos the next day that the water came up, I don't know, it looks like about maybe a foot from the outside of the house up, So it's probably came in the house maybe 3-4 inches. I'm not really sure. But all I know is at around 11 o'clock that night in the storm, I talked to my wife and I hung up with her, and I was like, I'm going to go board up a couple of the windows. So I went and boarded up one of the windows that were super low to the ground. And I come back to call her. It says no service on my phone. So now I have no electricity. I have no service. And I don't really know. So next morning I wake up, and I think this is kind of like the whole point of me telling the story. Of course, this is going to be the new True Sound Studios, but I mean, this was absolutely terrifying. This lasted like 12 hours, probably, I don't know, maybe 8-9 hours of this 150 mile an hour gusts. And it was like the worst thing I've ever gone through. Just so prolonged, going from one room to the next, just kind of feeling like totally helpless, like there was just no other options. And I wake up the next day and it's 76 degrees outside. All the water had receded, and it was actually a really nice day out. And I really couldn't believe that it could go from this, absolutely terrible day to this really, really nice morning. I really couldn't believe it. And I think that is like really, I think it's really important to remember, in life you have really bad days. Like things can get terrible, and like, I don't know if I've ever felt so helpless in my life, but then you wake up the next morning, even on top of a pantry, and it's a gorgeous day. And it was amazing. It quite honestly, like, even further changed, how I look at life. I mean, this one day really, really changed how I look at things. I'm not out of the woods yet. So I have no service. I have no car. I have no power. And all my neighbors don't really have cell phone service. So, I'm trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of here? Like, I can't be here. The house you can't live in it right now. It's destroyed. There's water damage everywhere. Half the windows are broken. I would say a third or a quarter of all the drywall came down, and the floors are flooded. It needs some serious work. And of course I find out that, a whole bunch of the shingles are gone. It's in really rough shape. It needs some help. I don't have the tools at the moment to make it livable. So I just needed to get out of there. And to make a long story short, my family just started posting on every social media platform, everywhere, constantly, and found a friend who I used to work with when I used to work at Wegmans, a grocery store. And he lived fairly close enough that he was willing and able to drive to come pick me up. He happened to be off of work that week. He had taken vacation. It was just great timing. He found a way to come get me. The only thing is I didn't know anybody was coming to rescue me yet. I knew my wife had called, Red Cross and all this stuff trying to get me out, but it wasn't an emergency, so they weren't going to come get me. But I had no service. But I had heard before the power went out and before I lost service on my phone that they were bringing in 200 temporary cell phone towers. So I knew if I could just walk down the roads enough, I could find cell phone service. And that's what I did. I walked a couple miles down the road, found service, was able to talk to my wife a few times, and they could start figuring things out how to get out of here. The only problem is walking 2 miles there, walking 2 miles back was, it was a lot. And of course I could have, I would have done it, but I thought, it'd be so much easier if I just had a bicycle. So I went back to the house, grabbed some water, and I started asking the neighbors, does anybody have a bike I could borrow? And this one guy was like, yeah, here's my kid's bike. It's this tiny little 12-inch tires. But I was like, I don't care. This is great. But the tires were flat. I went and found another neighbor who had a bike pump, pumped up the tires, and I just started heading down the road to where I was before. Couldn't get service, just kept riding 4 miles down the road, and I start to get a phone call from my sister, and I pick it up. She doesn't answer. I can't hear anything. Close it. Calls again. Can't hear anything. Close it. Third time she calls, because I'm just keep riding. I'm like, I think I'm riding towards a cell tower. She picks up. She's like, get back to the house. Your friend is coming to pick you up. You have to get back to the house. And I'm like, thank you so much. I can't believe. So I'm asking questions. She's like, I can't hear you. Just get back to the house. He's going to be there in 10 minutes. I'm 4 or 5 miles down the road now. I've never rode a bike so fast in my life. I thought I was going to snap the pedals off of this bicycle. I ride back. I get there, no joke, 1 minute before he gets there. Run in the house. I am soaked in sweat. I mean, this time it's 80 degrees, sunny out, gorgeous day. I've just sprinted on this child's bike. My knees are hitting the handlebars. and I got back to the house, and, I tell people that, it's like he came down from a helicopter and rescued me. And it was amazing. It was an amazing feeling. I went from this totally helpless feeling to, I felt like I was getting out of there. Somebody had come and saved me. So I will forever be so grateful for him. He is just amazing. So he takes me, back to his house, him and his girlfriend, and they got the hurricane too, and it was bad, but he had been there for a long time, fully prepared with food and storm shutters and everything. So eventually, we found a couple of restaurants the next morning, biking around on bikes, and that we were able to get warm food. And of course, I paid for everything I possibly could because I was so beyond happy and grateful that this incredible human being came and rescued me. And eventually, he got me to the Tampa airport, and I was able to come home. So, I don't know what to say. It was a life-changing experience. I came out totally unharmed. I know other people didn't, and I know other people had it much worse than I did. But, I really think it's important to, appreciate the fact, and at least I will, that you can have that just awful, scary, terrifying day where I really felt so hopeless. I had no power. I had no way to contact anyone. I don't know anybody. And then the next day, it's a beautiful, gorgeous day. It's like a hurricane didn't happen, minus the total destruction. And then somebody you haven't talked to in 10 years comes and rescues you. And it's just amazing. So I think that is the biggest thing that I will take away from this, is that the home can be fixed. Sure, we don't have insurance on this home, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure out a way to get it fixed and get it the way that we want. I'm unharmed. I'm safe. I had amazing people helping me out, and at some point I will go back and I will rebuild the house, and it will turn it into my new studio, and I will have a great studio, and that I will even appreciate even more than this. So guys, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next videos where I start rebuilding this house and building the new True Sound Studios.